Welcome to the Dumb Idea Podcast with Mike and Alex. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share this video or podcast on any platform that you're listening on. Please visit us at www.dumbideapodcast.com. All right, welcome back. Another show. We're coming up on the new year. And for college football fans, that usually means we're in the college football bowl season. And we got the playoffs coming up. I personally wish we had the 12-team playoff, but we're stuck with the four.
Too.
Stuck with the four this year. I think they're missing on a ton of revenue by sticking with this 4-team. I think, they were losing a bunch of money before they went to the 4-team system. Kind of beside the point. Maybe we'll hit on it later, but before we get into like the bowls and whatnot, a few weeks ago, there was the coaching carousel started, and this year we saw quite a few larger names on the move than we normally do, and it wasn't guys that had been fired and went to a new school. These were guys that had solid jobs with solid contracts, and they decided to leave their current situation to go to a new situation. And in my opinion, not necessarily better situations. And so the three main ones I'm talking about, and there's probably more, but it was Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma to USC, Brian Kelly going from Notre Dame to LSU, and Mario Cristobal going from Oregon to Miami. Now, all three of these coaches were quite successful at their universities. I mean, you're talking about all three of them were top 15 along some point of this year, never mind the prior years. I don't think any of them have been outside the top 20. Maybe Oregon a little bit. After Chip Kelly left there, I think they were kind of on a down spiral a little bit, but they were still good. Like they were not bad. In fact, I mean, when Justin Herbert was there, they were pretty darn good. But a couple things to hit on here. One, the moves to me made no sense from the coach's point of view. And then two, the whole, not morality, I hate putting that out there, but the mindset of the NCAA to allow coaches to go from $40 million jobs to $100 million jobs, and all they did was throw a bone to these athletes to say, well, you can make money off your name, image, and likeness now.
Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the guy in your living room just signed a $100 million contract. So let's hit on some of these one by one. So the one that makes the least sense to me is the Lincoln Riley one. Lincoln Riley has been at Oklahoma for a couple years, at least 4 or 5 years, something like that. Had a couple Heisman winning quarterbacks with Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Jalen Hurts was also there. That's 3 starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, that's quite the resume.
Yeah,
so to bring, and 3 starting quarterback, and I'm not sure about Hurts because he's playing with the Eagles are kind of garbage, but
he is a starting quarterback.
He's a starting quarterback, but Kyler Murray is
balling.
Yeah, and then I think the Browns kind of stumbled around a bit, but I think Baker Mayfield is the real deal. I don't think he's going to be like a Johnny Football type of guy. Yeah. So
the Browns can't unbe the Browns, no matter who the quarterback is.
And you'd think that the dumpster fire's finally out. Nope, not out.
No. I feel bad for that city a little bit. But my thing with the Lincoln Riley move, and it makes me scratch my head on a couple levels here. One, I can't imagine Oklahoma didn't have the $100 million to pony up for Lincoln Riley to stay. Not that Oklahoma makes a ton of money or they're in a high cost of living area, but that Oklahoma alumni base has a lot of money, and I'm pretty sure they could have came up with $100 million. And Lincoln could have stayed in Oklahoma where his family is, where he enjoyed being. The other part of it was Oklahoma in 2 years goes to the SEC. One could argue that between the Big Ten and the SEC, there are no bigger conferences in college football. Those are the big money conferences of the two. So to not see the move through to the SEC from the Big 12, and you go to the Pac-12, which in my mind is on the way down. Other than the money, it made very little sense to me, very little upside to go to USC from Oklahoma. I feel like I feel like there was a lot of upside for him to stay.
Maybe he was scared of the SEC.
I don't think so, man.
I mean, I'm just trying to throw something like maybe he thought he'd get exposed. Maybe he didn't think, but it's still that's kind of far down the line.
Yeah.
So his contract, all these guys, their contracts expired. They signed with. Is that how that worked?
So, no. So Lincoln Riley was under contract with OU, but I believe the buyout was only like $9.5 million. Mm-hmm. Only $9.5 million. And I'm pretty sure USC paid it for him.
Okay.
So they basically bought him out of his contract.
Right.
He got $100 million over, I believe, 10 years. And use of a private jet whenever he wants it. They paid him $500,000 over the market value for 2 of his homes in Oklahoma.
Wow.
They just basically threw him an extra
another $1 million.
Here's an extra $1 just for moving out. Now, granted, he probably needs that extra $1 million to buy a home out there in LA.
Right, and someone will be pooping on his
someone's gonna be
driveway.
Yep, gonna have some feces in his front yard. And I'm sure there were some other perks thrown in there. I also don't know if he has a buyout or not in that contract. They really, really wanted him.
Right.
I was just really surprised that Oklahoma didn't say, okay, we'll give you that contract plus another $20 million on top of it. Like, I feel like it's hard to find that next coach. I mean, for example, one guy that decided to stay was that guy, I believe his name is Mel Tucker, up in Michigan State. They threw, I believe, $85 million to him. Well, he's only been there like 2 seasons.
Yeah, but that dude's making 8 or 9. I think it's $8.9 million a year.
Yeah,
and I thought, well, I was like, wow, this guy's a college football coach making that kind of money. Then $100 million for 10 years is, that's just when you think of it. Now, is USC? Is that a private school or public school?
Private.
Okay.
UCLA is the public one.
Right. So it doesn't bother me as much. Now, I understand that, like, it's not like the taxpayers spending money on these, like, Michigan State, that's a public school. But,
yeah, I don't think these colleges are paying.
Yeah, they're not like state employees.
No, well, technically, I guess they are.
Yeah.
But the salaries are funded, I believe, from endowments that are funded by alumni.
Right.
So, yes, technically, all of these coaches are the highest paid state employees in the state. Like they did.
They make more money than all the other state employees combined.
Pretty much. They did some kind of like some graphic map where it showed like who the highest paid worker in each state was. And I think it was like 45 out of 50.
It was the head football coach.
It was either head football coach or head basketball coach of the state university.
Where they were 1 and 2.
Like I think like who was it? Calhoun up in Yukon was like the highest paid state employee. And like when it came out, everyone was like all up in arms. But like that's not coming out of state budgets. It's coming out of endowments from the because you know how many football players or basketball players from these large universities that are top 25 ranked in the country, how many of their players go to the NFL or NBA and then they give back to the school?
Yeah. Or even the ones that don't, that end up because of where they went to school.
Right.
Like if you were a starter, say for Duke basketball, and you get out and you don't make it to the NBA, you just graduate and go and do your thing. First of all, the Duke alumni network is probably enormous.
Right.
Then you played basketball for Duke, so you've got that going for you. Then you started.
Right.
So I'm sure there are probably a bunch of companies, like become a finance bro or a contractor bro or whatever kind of bro you want to be, and just get paid for doing that. And you're not ever playing ball again.
Right.
You're working in the private sector, but I'm sure those guys, it's almost like Naval Academy alumni. Like the value of going to a service academy goes way beyond the 4-year free college education. You're tied into that alumni network. If you think, well, who are some alumni of West Point and Annapolis? Like, I mean, just the list of essentially who's who in history went to those two schools.
Right. And never mind. I mean, I know there are companies that look for former service academy graduates to be in their executive teams for leadership purposes, because some of the best leadership classes are taught at those service academies.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a valuable asset. So these guys that go, and when they get out of the service, they're in demand as far as being in leadership roles in private companies.
And not only does it go from what they learned in school, but they actually have practical experience, and then that continuing education that is offered in the military that you get, leading, soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen in combat or whatever you're doing is enormous, and it translates. I mean, you see these guys making all kinds of money doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, plus motivational speaking.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I get that point of it, but yeah, they have multiple ways to make lots and lots of money, and they give back to these schools, and a lot of times that's where these coaches are getting paid out of. Like, Nick Saban isn't getting paid by the state of Alabama directly.
Right.
Yes, the money flows through the state of Alabama, but it's coming from the endowment at the University of Alabama.
Right. It's not coming from the property tax of the guy who lives in Mobile.
No. It's coming from the 30 to 40 guys that play in the NFL currently.
Right.
And never mind the rolling number of, Alabama, shoot. If you're the fourth string running back at Alabama, you're going to the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to start.
Yeah.
You couldn't start at Alabama, but you're going to start in the NFL.
Right. Start for the Jets.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I think there's like numerous examples of third string cornerbacks from Alabama starting in the NFL.
Yeah.
Third string linebackers at Alabama starting in the NFL. It's crazy. Like, if I was a kid and my dream was to make it to the NFL, if Alabama offers me, game over.
Yeah.
And not because Alabama's a great place to be.
Especially not during two-a-days in August.
No. I don't know if they're doing the Bear Bryant style, but and I don't think they're sweating it out too much.
I did two-a-days in Frederick, and it sucked.
Yeah,
So.
I'm pretty sure that they've got an indoor facility with some air conditioning that they're doing 2 days in. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess, but my point with Lincoln Riley was, yes, they threw him a bucket of money, but Oklahoma, I got to imagine, as far as endowments go and angel investors, that type of thing. Like for example, Oklahoma State has T. Boone Pickens, the oil man, right? Jerry Jones donates to University of Arkansas. Jimmy Johnson, University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like, there are some dudes that make a lot of money that went to those southern schools. And not just them, but a lot of these money guys give back to these universities. Shoot, just go walk on some of these campuses and look at the names on the buildings.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not like Oklahoma couldn't afford to have given him a $100 million contract over 10 years. And they probably would have held on to him for 1 or 2 more years, and he probably would have jumped to the NFL. But look, you get him for 1 or 2 more years, you delay the inevitable.
Yeah.
Because trying to find one of these coaches is not that easy. They're not growing on trees. For every 10 to 12 of these guys that are like the Dabo Sweeneys, the Nick Sabans, the Lincoln Rileys, the Brian Kellys, and we'll get to Brian Kelly in a minute. There's only about, I'll give a max of 20.
Yeah.
Max. And I think that's high. I think it's probably closer to 12.
I think it's a lot, but then you mentioned the NFL. A lot of them don't do well in the NFL.
No, but look at look at Nick Saban, gave it a try.
Yeah.
Didn't work, went back.
Yep.
Steve Spurrier gave it a try, went back.
Yep. Now Spurrier didn't go back to as big of a school. Where did he end up?
He went to South Carolina.
Yeah.
He went from the SEC to the SEC.
Right.
That's not horrible. Don't get me wrong. there was a big difference between Florida and South Carolina.
Yeah.
But don't tell a South Carolina fan that, right?
The old ball coach.
Don't tell them that. But I mean, right now, South Carolina has Shane Beamer, Frank Beamer's son. Whereas, yeah, there's rumors that Shane Beamer was going to go to take the Virginia Tech job.
Yeah.
But the ACC is not the SEC for football, right?
Right.
So even South Carolina, I mean, unless you're Vanderbilt in the SEC, every job in the SEC other than Vanderbilt is probably more desirable than almost any other job in this country, unless you're talking about the Big Ten. That's a different animal. That's like the northern version of the SEC.
Right.
The Midwestern version of it.
Yeah.
But
it's the SEC, but cold.
right. Pretty much. Yeah. You're going to play a little bit of snow.
Yeah.
So, like, that one had me scratching my head. And then the Brian Kelly one from Notre Dame to LSU. Again, big money. But he was making big money at Notre Dame. And again, Notre Dame has got the cash to keep him.
Yeah.
I wonder if Brian Kelly... And this one makes a little more sense. Notre Dame football is independent. They play a partial ACC schedule because all the other sports for Notre Dame are in the ACC. But for football, they maintain their independence. They have their own contract. They've got their NBC contract for TV. LSU's the SEC. Would he have left for any other school other than an SEC school and other than LSU? Which, look, they might not always be in the running for a national championship, but that place has got money for football.
Oh yeah, and it's LSU football is Louisiana sport. Like that's,
Yes.
and then you have the Saints, okay, but it's the New Orleans Saints. The state itself is, you see I went down to New Orleans and drive. You see even down there, you see the Go Tigers, the GEAUX. So that's the place to be in that entire state.
Yeah. And so I see that. I mean, don't get me wrong, though. Notre Dame football has national reach.
No, Notre Dame is like there's Notre Dame fans everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in New York and having buddies in New Jersey, like New York and New Jersey, Notre Dame is huge.
Oh yeah,
like huge.
Yeah, well, and, because you have the Irish thing,
right? Yeah,
and the Catholic thing.
Yeah.
Because what they have, was it End Zone Jesus or Touchdown Jesus?
Touchdown Jesus. Yeah.
So you're leaving Touchdown Jesus,
right? Yeah. Like, okay, Notre Dame, I think, is one of those schools that, even though it's remained independent, to me, it's got to be one of the top jobs in the country. You're never, I mean, money is no object for the most part. And the atmosphere for me, it's hard to beat Notre Dame on a Saturday. Like, not that I've ever been there, but I think watching it on TV, I'm like, wow. Like, that looks like if I was a kid going to college, like, even when I was looking at college, like, there's something to be said for that atmosphere. And it's the same kind of thing with, like, Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama or these the SEC schools. You look at the atmosphere there, 110,000 people all rooting for the same thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, so I went to so I'm a bit of a Penn State fan, and I was never a Penn State fan. I went to when I went to college, I was up in Pennsylvania, and not Penn State, and there was just Penn State fans. I'm like, Penn State's nowhere near here, but I went to a game and I was hooked.
Yeah,
and they played. It was Penn State, Nebraska, at night in Happy Valley, and I wore a Maryland hat. It was last minute. My buddy was going up and with his family because his older brother went there, and they have they actually bought a condo because they're season ticket holders. So I went and I was hooked.
Yeah.
Now people saw the red M. I thought it was a red N. I was like, no, it's Maryland. Don't worry about that. But now Maryland's in the Big Ten. They just get destroyed every year. But
and they actually didn't do too bad this year. But I mean, I feel like they got Maryland in there to be the rival to Penn State. Mm-hmm. Because Penn State, when they got added to the Big Ten, didn't have a natural rival there.
Right.
Because Pitt didn't go with them.
Yeah. And with Penn State, I mean, you had a bit of a Pennsylvania, Ohio thing. Because if you look at, like, Western Pennsylvania, football's huge.
Yeah.
And, in Pittsburgh, you've got they call it the Penn Ohio game. So the schools the counties that are along the Pennsylvania border, Pennsylvania Ohio border on both sides, they'll play all-star games and things like that. But I think it's more of a Pittsburgh, Ohio rivalry than it is an entire, because Philadelphia's nowhere near.
Yeah.
There,
It's
so
Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Pennsylvania are two different states,
Exactly,
in my
yep.
opinion. But Penn State was never going to be the rival to Ohio State because Ohio State had Michigan.
oh yeah,
That is what it is. I mean,
yeah.
that's
And
a
the
crazy
thing is, it's
rivalry.
not like say the NHL where you have the Capitals, Flyers, Caps, Penguins. You could have, but they play each other 7 times a year. Those schools, they're playing each other once.
Yeah,
So that's you can't have. It's hard to have 2 rivalries.
you could argue
that.
with Caps Penguins being the rivalry now that it is, I could see how University of Maryland Penn State would be the rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it comes to fruition or not, I don't know. I mean, Maryland has to win a couple for it to become a rivalry. Otherwise, it's just a stomping.
Yeah,
And it's like little brother comes to town.
the thing it did ruin the Maryland Duke, Maryland UNC rivalry from the ACC in basketball.
So we talked about this a long time ago. The problem is Duke UNC is the rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland thinks that Maryland Duke is a rivalry. They think that Maryland UNC was a rivalry. The problem is that Duke and UNC didn't see it that way.
Right. And I think that pissed off Maryland fans even more.
Yeah.
So,
But Duke UNC was the rivalry.
Yeah.
Maryland was just another team in the ACC to them.
Yeah.
Like, so every time that people around here thought that Maryland Duke was a rivalry, Duke's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And UNC was like, no. Like, Duke and UNC, for me, a rivalry is when both teams could be at the bottom of the conference. For that game, the place is still packed.
Oh, it's like Washington Dallas. Like that game is always a good. Now the last one wasn't that. It got good towards the end, but
right.
Yeah, one team can be in first place, one team can be in last place. They can both be in last place, and they always bring it.
Right.
And it's one of those things that it's acknowledged. Like we hate them and they hate us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see where Duke didn't. Because that's Duke and Maryland's whatever.
Yeah.
But
So there was one more coach. So that was going back to Brian, I could see why Brian Kelly would go. I think he went from a great job to another great job.
Well, Lincoln Riley didn't. He went from a.
No, I don't get that. Back in this is not the old Pete Carroll USC.
Yeah.
This is not it. When USC had that run for years with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and all that, they had a few years where they were the dominant. They were the Alabama of college football for a time.
And the thing is, with USC, they're not going to play in the playoffs or they're not in contention for it.
So, if they ever got good again, if they ran the table, even in the Pac-10, I think they would have a shot.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Well, he'll be able to recruit more. He'll be able to recruit better athletes to USC than he did to Oklahoma because LA has such a hotbed of talent."
Yeah.
I think that's garbage. I think nowadays kids, if they go where they have the best shot to make the NFL,
Right.
and
SEC, Big Ten are the next closest thing.
correct.
It's almost like the minor leagues of the.
Yeah, the Pac-12, and this goes to the next guy we're going to talk about, Mario Cristobal, who was the head coach at Oregon, just took the job at the University of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, this is one of the biggest head scratchers I could think of. Now, granted, he is a University of Miami alum. I get that part of it, but the guy they canned for him, I think his name was Manny Diaz. Last name was Diaz. I know that. He was a UM alum, and they just tossed him aside like he was nothing. But this guy, Cristobal, is going from the University of Oregon. And for people that don't know, the University of Oregon is basically fully funded by Phil Knight and Nike, which is why they got crazy uniforms and all this other.
It's like Maryland with UA, with Under Armour.
Yeah, except on steroids.
Yeah.
The facilities there are ridiculous. One could argue that they were the school that kind of jump-started the facilities competition amongst all the big schools because Phil Knight just put so much money into those facilities for University of Oregon. It was crazy. Indoor facilities, multiple turf fields, football only workout rooms or workout gyms, like unbelievable. And then everyone else kind of started following suit because he did it like 15 years ago. And as much as I just knocked the Pac-12, University of Miami's in the ACC, which is just kind of a mediocre.
The basketball conference.
Yeah, it's a mediocre football conference now. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they got some good teams in it, and it isn't a Power 5 conference. I get that part, but I mean, this is not the University of Miami that you and I grew up with. This was not the Jimmy Johnson, University of Miami, Michael Irvin, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Warren Sapp. Not that Dwayne Johnson was anything special, but he was there. He was there. He had a cup of coffee on the field. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, like future Hall of Famers. Yeah, play there.
Sean Taylor went there too, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. I think Emmett Smith was an Oklahoma guy, wasn't he?
Yep.
But there were Bernie Kosar, I believe, was a University of Miami guy. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on that one. But yeah, I mean, they were one of the best football teams, and they were exciting and they were brash. But they haven't been that in 15 years.
And University of Miami, that's not a big giant school, is it?
No, it's a private school.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's private. I don't think it's a public school. Down in Coral Gables, not in the greatest part of town, from what I understand. Maybe that. Facilities are just I mean, think about it. You're going to go from Oregon, University of Oregon, with some of the best facilities in the nation, to Miami. Now, granted, you got better weather, but I feel like he's almost committing career suicide. Because think about it. You're going from the University of Oregon. You could have picked almost any school you wanted to go to from there. If let's say he just wanted out of Oregon, he could have picked any school in the nation, and they probably would have, other than like 3 to 4 other universities, they probably would have swiped him up. Like if he wanted to go to the Big Ten or SEC, someone would have picked him up. But he went to Miami, and
maybe he wanted that, that South Florida. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, think about other schools that are in the ACC. It's Florida State, North Carolina, Duke, Syracuse, Pitt. I mean, Pitt was okay this year because they got the quarterback there. But Virginia Tech is not the football team it used to be.
Yeah, UVA, they're not.
UVA, yeah,
yeah.
Of those schools I just rattled off, other than like Georgia Tech or Wake Forest, one of those two was okay.
Yeah. And Syracuse hasn't really done anything since Donovan McNabb was there. No. They have a hard time bringing people because, like, what's in Syracuse? Like, it's cold. It's not.
Freeze my buns off.
There's nothing close to it.
The Carrier Dome up there?
Yeah.
That thing's got to be old as crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just don't get it. Why would you go from. I mean, even the Pac-12 to me is better than the ACC.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he was at the flagship of the Pac-12.
Right. I mean, as far as facilities go, like, it must have been real easy to recruit there because you just show them the facilities. Mm-hmm. It's like, go ahead. Go look elsewhere. Yeah, go look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Let me know how it works out. Probably gets a call 3 days later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go play in the rain.
Their stuff's probably better than NFL stuff.
I got to imagine. Yeah, a lot of times, yeah. I mean, there's probably like 10 universities out there, maybe 12, 15. Their facilities are on par with NFL teams. I mean, but I get it. I mean, Miami probably threw some money at him. I get that. I don't know the details of that contract, but that seems like the dumbest move I saw. Like, well, actually, between him and Lincoln Riley, I think those were like Lincoln Riley could easily go to USC and be an also-ran in 3 years. Mm-hmm. Like, no one's gonna remember him.
Yeah,
because if he doesn't win there, like if he wins there, he'll be like stardom. I get that, but if he doesn't, another name. He's a Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Mm-hmm. You know, known as a good coach, but just another name.
Yeah.
But then we come to another aspect of this. And that's the NCAA kind of hypocrisy in all this. These guys can leave, and the sums of money that are now being thrown about, 85 mil for the guy up in Michigan State, 100 mil for Lincoln Riley. Now, granted, those are over 10 years, but that's still 10 million a year, or 8.9 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
These are NFL salaries.
Yeah.
These are, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some NFL coaches outside like Bill Belichick and some other names, I mean, those guys were making probably 20 mil a year, but a low end NFL head coach, like a young guy or something, probably makes like 5 or 6 mil a year.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys are making more than an NFL head coach. Now,
some might argue that the job's easier.
Well, that's another thing.
Because you're not so.
You treat the kids like crap if you want
to. Because they're still going to come. They just want to. They're chasing a dream. The NFL guys, they already got, especially the.
You're holding that. You're holding the scholarship over their head.
Yeah.
So well, if you don't do what I want you to do, no, you won't have a scholarship next year.
Yep.
Pros don't work that way. The guy's already got a contract.
Yeah.
And I guess like they let these coaches move from university to university, and they try to put these egregious buyouts in, like a $9 million buyout, thinking that's going to stop these guys from moving around. When all of these universities can afford to pay these buyouts, like at what point is the money just circulate? Like that's like the same $9 or $10 million.
It's just getting
passed around to buy coaches out of contracts, right? Like no one's probably $10 million total has been spent. It's just the same $10 million going passed around between each university. But so these guys are making. I mean, and I'm sure Saban makes more than $10 million a year. And I think it was this year was the first year that these kids can use their name, image, and likeness and get paid for it. Like so.
It's like when they're in the video game, they get.
Yeah, I don't even think it applies to the video game.
Oh wow!
I think it's like personal endorsements, not so. Like the NCAA authorizes the use. So like you ever notice in those games, they don't put the name on the back of the jerseys. No. They don't put the name in the game. It's just quarterback number 12. That's it.
Yep.
And like that's Tom Brady at the University of Michigan,
right?
When he was at Michigan. Now he can't do that because he's a pro. Like with the Madden game, the NFLPA gets that cut, where there is no Players Association in the NCAA, so the NCAA is getting that money.
Yeah.
For the name, image, well not name, image and likeness, I guess for the most part. Where they can get it is like the local car dealership can like sign each kid up for like $500 a year.
Oh. So it's not like big money endorsement deals.
It could be. I mean, they can give them whatever they want.
It's like say a Heisman Trophy is a junior, and he's not going to the NFL next year. He's going to stay and play another year of college football.
He can secure a bag from somebody. From like let's say the car dealership gives him like $20,000, and he appears in like 2 commercials.
Now, could he get like a sneaker contract? Could like Adidas sponsor him? And
I don't think so because I think he's got to wear whatever the contract with the university is. So like let's say like Oregon's got a Nike contract. If Justin Herbert was back in the school, he couldn't wear Adidas shoes.
Right.
Yeah, I know that's pretty much how that works. It's got to be a personal. It can't be a team related thing. It's got to be a personal deal.
Okay.
So like the local Jersey Mike's sub shop wants to just put his picture up on there.
Eastern's Auto.
Yeah. Eastern, right. That's exactly what it is. Where your job is your credit, right? You know, but for people that don't know, Eastern's Auto is like the shady car dealership around here that will loan money to anybody to get a car.
30% interest.
30%. That's so bad.
On a credit card.
That's so horrible.
Put on a credit card, you only paid 18.
Right. Yeah. Chances are someone with that 30% interest rate can't get a credit line to buy a car.
Right.
On the credit card. But yeah, I mean, so these kids, what are they? I mean, some of these kids, most of them, a majority of them will get like maybe a 25 or 5, maybe 500. Only like the top 5 or 6 guys will get that like $10,000 for his name. But think about this though. Lincoln Riley's going to make 10 mil a year. Most of these college, I mean, let's say the most of these college coaches are making like 600 to 1.2 mil for an average SEC or Big Ten coach that isn't like That isn't
that
Ohio State,
right.
isn't Michigan.
Isn't Harbaugh, isn't, yeah.
Yeah. So let's say they're making $1 million. The kid's going to make 20 grand. This guy's making $1 million.
Yeah.
And the assistant coaches are making 800 grand.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, like, one thing that doesn't really get around much, being an assistant coach in college doesn't suck on your wallet if you're at a big name school. Now, it does suck if you're at a small school.
Right.
But after you spend a couple years working your way up, if you're a single guy. Whew.
So how far down does the money go? So I imagine, like, the head coach, of course, we're talking about that, the OC, the DC.
Special teams coordinator.
Right. But what happens
Strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah. What happens when you get down to, like, the running backs coach, the offensive line coach? Like, you start getting into the more specialized.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, for example, like that guy, Brett Venables, was the offensive coordinator at Clemson. He was making over $1 million a year as a coordinator. But, I mean, that's also Clemson. Dabo Swinney was making a lot of money. I would say, and usually those guys will take care of the downstream as well. So, like, in contract negotiations, either Sweeney or Venables would have said, all right, I want 1.2, and, oh, by the way, my running backs coach, offensive line assistant coach, I want them to make this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So I would say at that level, as long as it's not something like, it's not a graduate assistant, it's not someone just like 1-2 years in, like someone who's been around a little bit, I gotta imagine they're at least the 100,000 mark, at least.
Yeah,
and that's assuming that they're still relatively fresh in their 20s or even early 30s. But I say once you're in your mid 30s, you're probably already latched on to somebody who's taking care of you to make sure that because these guys are like they run in crews.
Yeah, they're boys.
Yeah.
And you see it in the NFL too. They'll bring, they'll get their guys in,
right?
And you'll see them like that. Say the offensive coordinator from one NFL team. Now he's the head coach. And you're like, oh wait, I remember that dude. That guy was the running backs coach, and now he's, the assistant offensive coordinator with that. But it's weird the NFL. If you look at the college coaches, it's like these dudes that have been there forever.
Yeah.
Your Sabans, and I'm not a huge college football guy, but, Spurrier, the old ball coach, and all these other dudes, they've been there forever in college football. And you look at the NFL, you have some of the guys that have been around forever, but, like, look at the dude from L.A.
Yeah, McVay.
Yeah. And then another one who was young, who's now old because he's been there forever, Mike Tomlin.
Right.
Mike Tomlin he was in his 30s.
Right.
He had players that were older than him.
Yeah.
That he was now coaching, but the NFL seems to be going younger. The dude from Green Bay, he's a younger guy.
He's 35.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Yeah, San Francisco. I forget the dude coached the Broncos forever.
Yeah.
Now he's there. Went up with his dad. He was the OC with Washington when his dad was there, and then goes to San Francisco. They're younger dudes.
So like the guy, San Francisco, Shanahan, yeah. But he came in with
Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. But his dad was Mike Shanahan,
right? So his dad brought him up. But the thing is, like, okay, it's a family business, but you're going to learn. Mike Shanahan's your dad. You think you're going to be a football dunce?
Yeah. So a good example of this is a guy I went to college with and I played with in college is actually now the head coach at Boston College. But when he came out of school, I think he went into high school coaching first, but then he landed on Greg Schiano, Rutgers staff. And then Schiano went to Tampa Bay to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks. And he went with him to be a wide receivers coach there, or a corner. It was either wide receiver or secondary coach there. So now he's like in his early 20s, and he got in with someone who was making moves, right? And then Schiano got fired from the Bucks, and I think he went to go work for Urban Meyer at Ohio State. And he followed Schiano there too. And then I guess Schiano was out at Ohio State, and he was co-defensive coordinator at Ohio State. And then he parlayed that into the head coaching job at BC. at 41, 40-ish. So, I mean, he was a young guy, but that's how these young guys can do it.
Yeah.
Especially if they're, if they end up calling, like, and some of these guys end up lucking into a spot just because there is such movement in the coaching carousels.
Yeah.
Especially amongst coordinators and lower levels. Like, obviously, if you're on a staff with someone and the defensive coordinator gets a job somewhere else and you're the next person up, even though you're only 30 or 32, a lot of these places, they only hire from within.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you already know the system,
right?
You know the culture of the organization. You're someone that head coach trusts because you've been around.
Right.
So, just plug you in there.
Right.
And then the other guys are going to stay. And I imagine it probably also comes down to a coach knows he's losing his defensive coordinator, and he's also going to lose his linebackers coach and something else. And they'll call someone and be like, hey, I'm losing my you know anyone who's good for this spot? Like, oh, yeah, I got a kid who's great.
Right.
And then he gives over and then jumps and ends up with this dude, but the two head coaches knew each other.
Right.
And it happens in every profession.
Yeah.
It's not just football. I mean, that happens. That's networking.
Well, even like with the Ravens, like Rob Ryan is a linebackers coach with the Ravens right now.
Yeah.
Well, he and Harbaugh were, I believe, on the Eagles staff together way back when.
Yeah.
Under Andy Reid. I think that's how they knew each other.
Yeah.
So they all remember, like,
and the Ryans all came from Buddy Ryan.
They did. If anything, the story behind this is, network at your job, because you never know what's going to happen or who can get you a job later on down the road.
Yeah. Oh, it happens at my job. I'll have, another guy, at my level will be like, hey, I'm looking to fill this spot. I'm like, yeah, I got a dude. Or I know this girl, she's great, whatever. And then they'll go over there. They weren't even being thought of for that position, but because they knew someone, and, it's almost, you're willing to take the chance on someone who doesn't know anything about that because it's coming from someone who and trust. It's like, okay, I can,
right.
If Bob is good with this dude, then I'm good with him.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, people aren't going to, if you're good friends with someone and you ask someone, hey, what's this other person like? They don't want to risk a friendship over a bad recommendation.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good recommendation, or at least a safe one.
Right.
Like, the guy's not going to be the guy's not going to be a putz. You know what I mean?
Getting an idiot.
Yeah. Like, he'll at least be able to tie his shoes and get to work in the morning.
Yeah.
Which, so that's
sometimes puts your head and shoulders above everybody else at that point.
Right. Yeah. But going back to how much these guys are making, right? Now, look, I've always been, when it comes to athletes getting paid, I've always been of the assumption, especially with the cost of college right now, if a guy stays for 4 years and gets a degree, and it's all paid for, full ride, you're looking at roughly $120,000. Because I'm going to guess it's $30,000 a year times 4 years, $120,000. Now, some places are $40,000, $50,000. Some places are maybe 25.
Well, a lot of these kids, if they redshirt, they're staying 5 years.
Sure.
So they might be getting half a master's degree out of it too.
So let's say $30K times 5 is 100. So it's $150,000 they're getting, plus free room and board.
Yeah. And they're not eating at the college slop hall.
No.
There's football-only dining rooms. They have nutritionists and staff and all this stuff. So.
Bingo. And they're getting all the financial help and advice they need, financial education, like education outside of what the college offers.
And they're also getting network, too.
A network, yeah.
Because we touched on that earlier.
Correct. You see all the alumni that you're meeting, never mind the guys you're playing with who will end up going on to do something, probably. Yeah. And think about it, this is from $150,000. So let's just say it's $30,000 a year, and if you want to tack on all the benefits and stuff, you're getting medical, dental. I mean, not directly, but you're getting it, right? I mean, if you break an arm, you're going to the trainer and the school doctor, who's probably the best doctor in the area.
Oh yeah.
So you figure, let's say it's another $15,000 from the food, the medical, the dental, all that stuff. $45,000 a year for an 18-year-old kid with a high school education and no skills.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound that bad anymore. And now on top of that, they can get endorsement deals for name, image, and likeness, which can add another $500, $600, $700, maybe 10,000. Who knows? It depends on how good they are or how generous because let's face it, some of these alumni networks are going to make sure every kid gets a piece.
Oh yeah.
They might not all get the same piece, but
and Mama Dukes is being taken care of, and
correct.
Here's the other thing is, and I used to be real like, oh, we got to pay these kids, and they're the coaches are making X amount, and these schools are making so much money off of them, but it's not. If you want to look at it as the NFL's development league, because there's no minor league football.
Right.
And all the other football things they've tried, for whatever reason, they just tank. Whether it's XFL or what was that one they tried to start recently?
AFL, All-American Football League or something like that? Or American?
All of it tanks, right? So Arena, the only one that sticks around is Arena.
Right.
And I think it's because it's so different. It kind of stays, but you have the Arena League. So they're really the major Division I schools are the NFL's development league.
Right.
So they come out of there. If you compare them to their benefit package to what a single A baseball player makes,
right,
or even double A,
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
And the thing is, that's all of them. They're all those big. It's funny because if you see next time you're watching football, compare the sideline of an NFL team to the sideline of a college team.
The home team.
Yeah.
Because visitors, they can only travel with so many.
Right.
But the home team, there's no limit.
They've got more players than numbers. You'll see 2 number 99s on the sideline.
Most times there's over 100 kids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it's like 110.
Yeah.
Generally. Not all of them are on full rides, though.
Yeah.
I'd say you probably got at least 30 walk-ons.
Right.
Now, some of them might eventually earn a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think I want to say it was like 75 or 80 scholarships per team.
Yeah, but if you walk on to Alabama and you stay in that, you could probably transfer out and then get a full ride elsewhere.
Well, just because we're saying walk on, like if you walk on and make the team, I'm not saying this is happening, but I'm sure there's some back way of making sure the kid's not paying for much.
So I played Division III football, so there's no scholarships in Division III. But somehow they found grants and other scholarships at the school. So there was $10,000 that was off of my tuition from the mystical, magical places.
Some kid at Alabama who graduated high school with a 2.5 as a walk-on, and now he's walking out of Alabama.
Yeah.
All of a sudden found himself with an academic scholarship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I got mine. It was some sort of Christian fellowship.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to a meeting once a week.
Dominus omnis.
But so that's what happens there. Now, single A baseball, those dudes make nothing.
Yeah.
And now,
granted, some of them. The draft picks get money.
Right, like your Adley Rushman.
Yeah.
That dude's has a signing bonus and is getting paid because the Orioles want to keep him in their system. But the average player who's picked up and trying to work his way up and is hoping maybe because Rushman's just waiting until they determine that he's good enough within the next year or two,
or until they're ready.
Yeah,
to start his clock.
Yeah, so they bring him in and then, but it's probably a better deal. And in fact, so Tom Brady was drafted by the Montreal Expos. I believe it was the Expos, and he was a left-handed catcher. No, left-hitting catcher.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought him up to a tour of the team was playing. They brought him in. They're showing him the facility. He's talking to the players, and they're like, "Yeah, so what are you gonna do?" He goes, "Oh, well, it's either here or Michigan." They're like, "What do you mean here or Michigan?" He goes, "Well, I can go play football in Michigan." He said, "Wait, and you're thinking why are you even here,
right,
dude?
Right.
Like, go to Michigan." But yeah, I'll be a professional baseball player. And then the players walk in, and I think it was in that documentary, the Brady Six or whatever. They were talking about that, and essentially dude, what are you? And these are major leaguers, and they're like, "Go to Michigan." Are you crazy?
Do you remember You remember Drew Henson?
Mm-hmm.
So he went to Michigan, started a couple years there.
Yeah.
But I guess he wasn't going to pan out in the NFL, and so I guess he graduated from Michigan, and then he went and was drafted by the Yankees, and he ended up going through the minor leagues of the Yankees. But he got a huge paycheck because of who he was.
Yeah.
Not where he got drafted.
Yeah.
But they paid him a lot of money
Look at Tim Tebow.
to stop playing football.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got Tim Tebow went back through the minor league, but he did football first.
Right. Well,
So,
yeah. But I mean, Drew Henson was a legit major league prospect, though. And sometimes what they do is, though, some of these guys get offered a ton of money to stop playing football. Mm-hmm. Like Kyler Murray got offered to not play football, to go play baseball. Russell Wilson, same thing.
Yeah.
Like these guys, like it's not like they don't try.
Yeah.
But there's more money in football and a faster track to the NFL than there is for baseball players to make it to the MLB.
Well, yeah, because I mean, look at Rushman, who's been number 1 overall draft pick, and he's
not even guaranteed to make the opening day roster.
Yeah.
And year 3, right?
Yeah.
Like last year was year 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because his first year was with I think he was with he bounced.
He was in Aberdeen.
Aberdeen,
for the first year,
and then I think he may have been in
Frederick?
Salisbury.
Oh.
I don't think he stopped in Frederick. I think he went right to Bowie. And then I don't think he's going to go. I don't think they're going to send him to Norfolk. I think his next stop is Baltimore.
Yeah. I think for them, and I hate the way baseball does this. They won't call a kid up, not because he isn't ready, but because when he gets called up, his service clock starts.
Yeah.
And they only get a certain number of years of control once that clock starts. Mm-hmm. Which to me is the worst. Like if I was the MLB Players Association, that'd be one of the first things I want out of my contract.
Well, yeah. And there's a bunch of things with the baseball contracts in the minor leagues. There have been players that have been, trying to get better pay and treatment for those minor league ball players, but the MLB looks at it as an apprenticeship program more so than because
there's a lot of players there that are never going to make it to the bigs.
No.
There's a lot of filler players on those rosters. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the MLB draft, like 30 rounds?
Well, and then MLB is weird because they have all these other drafts in there. I think you can be drafted twice. Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, there's the supplemental draft, and then they draft each other's players if they've been hanging around too long.
The Rule 5 draft. Yeah, if you've been in the minor leagues of a club for 5 years, any team can pick you.
Yeah.
But if they pick you, you lose the draft pick, you lose that round's draft pick for the next year. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, and how it works is like each team submits, if they want someone from the Rule 5 draft, they submit the name of the player and the round that they want to take them. So let's say the Orioles want Christian Yelich from the Brewers. Mm-hmm. Let's say he's been in their minor leagues for 5 years. Not an all-star major leaguer.
Yeah.
And the Orioles put down Christian Yelich, round 5. Mm-hmm. If they get down to round 5 and no one's put his name in, the Orioles will get him. But let's say the Blue Jays put round 2 Christian Yelich, the Blue Jays get him because they're willing to give up a higher round draft pick for Christian Yelich. Mm-hmm. But in the following year's draft, they lose that second round draft pick.
Yeah.
Okay. And also that Rule 5 draft pick has to be on your 40-man roster the entire year. You can't put him down in the minors.
Yeah.
So you got to be damn sure he's going to be helpful. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's either 40-man or 25-man. I forgot which one it is. Like, you can't put him back down in the minors.
Yeah.
I know that.
Well, I think the 40-man roster doesn't come in until the end of the season.
No. So there's the 40-man is the people who can come up and down from the minors. Okay. At the end of the year, I think you're allowed to bring everyone in the 40-man up to the majors.
Right.
So you're not playing with just the 25-man roster anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference there. I know the 40-man exists throughout the whole year, I think.
Okay.
And that's why people
that's where I was
AAA. Yeah. Like people can swap between AAA, like for the spot starts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone goes on IR, you pull them up. Yeah,
or you send them down for conditioning and bring somebody up to fill their spot.
Yeah.
So
But so like, and then the question, I think I made a case for both sides. Like, are coaches paid too much? Probably not, because if they were, they wouldn't pay it, right? Like someone made the argument that Nick Saban was underpaid at the University of Alabama because of the revenue he brings to the University of Alabama, simply by making that team as good as it is, right? And then you've got to ask the question, well, what about those kids there? Is 45,000 basically tuition plus room and board and all the benefits that go along with it? Is that enough for them if the head ball coach is making $15 million a year?
Yeah.
And you think he's underpaid? Well, what about, is that $45,000 underpaid for each kid? And someone's gonna say, well, you can't pay 100 kids, another $20,000 a year. You can't do it. It's too much money.
Well, I think once you crack that can of worms, where does it stop?
Right. Well, but then you've also got the competitive balance thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say I'll use the ACC for example. Actually, I'll use the Big Ten. All right. Ohio State's at the top. Usually Northwestern's at the bottom.
Right.
Right. At Ohio State, with the endowment and all the money that's in escrow and all that stuff for the program to use, what if they can pay each kid on that roster $40,000 a year in addition to $40,000 cash salary? Well, Northwestern can't pay that.
Right.
So now you've got two teams in the same conference where you just tilted the balance way in the favor of Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
Now don't get me wrong. Is a kid going to choose if two kids are getting recruited, and the kids are getting recruited to both Northwestern and Ohio State? You think anyone's choosing Northwestern over Ohio State? No, of course not.
And I think Northwestern could probably pay $100,000 a year,
right?
And Ohio State could pay nothing,
right?
And they'd still go to Ohio State.
But I mean, but let's say it was two equal teams. So let's say you got Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State's willing to pay each kid $40,000. University of Michigan says we can only do 10. Equal schools.
Yeah.
As far as notoriety goes, that tilts the balance in favor of Ohio State now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, someone could say that's already happening with the name, image, and likeness, because what if Ohio State? I guarantee what's going to happen with these schools is they're going to have an NIL coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a brand new position. It's going to pop up all over the country. And the sole purpose, basically, of that person is to act as an agent for the players. And businesses will go direct. Like, so let's say the car dealership. The car dealership will go to that person, that NIL coordinator, and say, look, I got a budget of $1 million that I want to pay to get these kids to endorse my brand. And he says, I want you to give all 100 the same. Okay? Or he's going to say, I want you to give it all to 5 kids.
Right.
Well, if there isn't a car dealership up in Ann Arbor that has that same thing, they can't offer that kind of money to these kids.
Right.
Right? So how can you do it? And how are you going to be able to do to keep the playing field level? And a lot of people are going to say, well, the playing field's not level anyway. Mm-hmm. Because they can tilt it with facilities, they can tilt it with nicer dorms, they can tilt it with nicer food, they can tilt it because they're giving mom and dad a house that someone else, like the University of Louisiana, can't compete with LSU.
Yeah.
Or La Tech can't compete with LSU.
Well,
right?
and so, some of these college kids come in with kids and girlfriends and all so they're coming in with and they're taking care of them too.
Yeah. So
now, can one of these kids go? Remember, Johnny Manziel got in trouble for signing footballs or something.
Yeah.
Can they do that stuff?
I think so. I think now they can.
Yeah.
Like Terrell Pryor got the same, had the same problem. Like he sold some jerseys or something like that.
Yeah.
Because the other problem is these kids can't go work. Like when they sign that scholarship, they're not allowed to go work, so they can't earn extra money.
And
so this is the way for them to do it.
Well, and you played college lacrosse. I played college football. You don't have time to work when you're in any sort of college. Athletics is a completely different ball game than high school.
I mean, I worked at the athletic center. Like I would work at like the front desk, to earn some extra cash. But I mean, you were getting paid minimum wage,
right? Yeah, I did. I mean, summers and stuff you can work, but when you're a D1, a major Division One, you're not like, working at you're not mowing lawns over the summer.
No,
Like you're
no.
doing football stuff all year.
Well, the funny thing is, in the summertime, I actually work for the school again, on the housekeeping staff.
Okay.
So we would go and we'd wash windows.
Mm-hmm.
We would clean the floors,
Yeah.
like after kids had moved out.
Right.
And then we would also we would set up and break down like stages and whatnot, like for graduation or for if there was an event going on. Like so, like I worked almost my whole summer at the school. Yeah, I'd work for 2 months. I pack in some overtime, and then I take like the rest of the month before school off. But but that was okay because it was for the school.
Right.
But like not all kids do that, I don't know. I just think it's hard to say how that should work. Now, one thing I thought was gonna happen years ago, back when all the conference realignment started, I actually thought we were gonna get 4 16-team divisions, and I thought they were gonna just scrap the NCAA completely. Like I thought the NCAA was going to go back to being like a Division II, Division III thing, and whatever remained of Division I. But the I thought at the time it was like 6 big conferences, and they all would have fit almost perfectly into 4 16-team divisions, basically.
Yeah.
And they should have just dropped the NCAA and been their own organization, and then they could have done whatever they wanted.
Yeah. Well, the NCAA, so I was thinking for paying the kids, if you're going to pay, maybe that money would come from NCAA.
Oof.
They've got the money. But, okay, you're here, so that eliminates the disparity between schools. If it's coming directly from NCAA.
Yeah, the problem with that is I don't think the schools would want that.
Yeah.
Like the big, at schools like the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Notre Dames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't want to give a cut to the NCAA.
Yeah.
They can give them what they're giving them.
Yeah. But the NCAA, when you get into the college football, so they manage, so division, and, talking about the 16 teams, and when you get into the divisions, so Division II has a playoff.
Right.
Division III has a playoff.
1AA has a playoff.
Yeah.
Or FC, what is it, the FCS now?
Yeah.
Whatever, garbage.
But they don't have, But college football still has this, and okay, now there's 4 teams that go to it.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I never got into college football was before they did the 4 teams, and even still now with it, is because, to me, there were too many teams. It didn't mean anything in the end because it was the BCS. It was just a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
BCS is just BS, just add a C to it.
Right.
And I just never got into it because, okay, a bunch of writers decided, and then you'd have those guys that would run the score up because it was all going to the computer. So if you were trouncing teams, I forget the coach's name at Nebraska before, when they were good. He was doing that. I forget his name.
Tom something.
Yeah, and they would run the score up on Western Wyoming Tech.
Yeah, because
it would make them, make them look better.
Yep.
And I just couldn't get
Tom Osborne.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I couldn't get down with it. And then I said, well, you could, and they say they need to break it. Well, if Division III can do it, and Division II, and 1AA, and all these others, they can do it, why can't football do it?
I think the bowls, I think they had an issue with the bowls.
There's so much money.
Well, so here's the thing. There were the 4 big bowls. It was the Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl.
Was it Cotton Bowl?
Cotton Bowl, and maybe the Fiesta Bowl was the 5th. The problem was getting the 5 of them on board, because which one would be the championship game?
Rotate it.
Well, and so I think all of them were pretty short-sighted, because I don't think it really matters which one you are. Yeah. I think if you're in there,
everyone's going to watch it.
Everyone's going to more people are going to watch it. Look, if you got the Cotton Bowl, and the national, that's not the national championship game, no one's watching that. Yeah. But if it's the quarterfinals of the playoff, everybody's watching.
So
it.
Right,
so they were so short-sighted.
So take 2. Let's use the NFC because the NFC is garbage this year. So say who's number 1 in the NFC South right now?
Tampa.
Okay, so Tampa Bay is playing the Redskins. Well, the Washington football team.
Oh, better watch out.
Yeah, sorry.
Governor Hogan said the wrong thing, too, and they blasted him.
Yeah, well, if I get blasted, maybe Governor Hogan could come on and we can talk about it.
Right. You guys can be, commiserate.
Yeah, so no one's paying attention to that game. Now, you take that game and you make it, say the Redskins somehow become a wild card team, which they actually could, because the NFC is such trash.
Yes.
And they're playing Tampa Bay. Well, all of a sudden, people are watching that game. It's a playoff game. So wouldn't the same thing hold true for the bowl games?
Yes.
It absolutely would. Mm-hmm. Now expand it, and all these bowl games, like it was the Simpsons had it. It was like the Lard Lad Quickie Mart something bowl,
Right?
Because they keep adding these minor bowls, and teams that are like under 500 go to them.
Right.
So you make those the first rounds of the playoffs are those bowls, and then it just so a team will win. If you win out, you'll go to 4 bowl games.
Well, if you have an 8-team playoff, you need 7 bowls.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Because you got 4 for the quarterfinals, 2 for the semis, and then 1 for the championship game. But someone, and you're right, you could just, I think if you rotated though, it would get kind of confusing. Like,
you don't even need to, because it's a playoff game. Everyone's going to watch it.
Yeah, you're right. Everyone, that's the thing. Everyone, so.
And what was the Rose Bowl? That was always what? The Big Ten and the Pac-12?
Yes, still is.
Yeah. So, okay, so it's the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Well, say no one cares about those teams. The only people who are going to watch it are Big Ten fans and Pac-12 fans. Right. You make that one of the bowl games in the playoffs, everyone's watching.
Everyone's watching, yeah.
Because, like, for me, during Wild Card Weekend, I watch all those games. I love it because there's games on Saturday, Sunday. It's great.
It's awesome.
So, and it's like teams that are like just barely scratch their way in there.
It becomes an event. I mean, like those 3-4 weeks of that NFL season, even if you don't pay attention the rest of the season, you now have each weekend is an event now.
Yeah.
Because you want to watch it. Yeah. Because that's when the best football gets played.
Right. And it really means something because one team is going home.
Yeah.
So you do the same thing with college football, but you make the Rose Bowl now one of those things. And when you look at the conferences, even if you were to just invite the champion of each of these conferences, and let's even include teams like Cincinnati and I forget what conference they're in.
Yeah. All-American Conference or something.
Yeah. Then there's like
AAC.
Yeah. Then there's like the CA.
Whatever that is.
Florida Atlantic and all these schools that kind of come in and, they might have some player flash in a pan type deal, but let's invite those teams in. One of the reasons I think they're afraid to do it, say Alabama comes in first round. They're going to play one of the weaker schools, so they play Cincinnati, and Cincinnati beats them.
Yep.
I think that is what they're afraid of.
Well, I mean, that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like this year, Cincinnati and Alabama.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want Alabama to play Georgia again right away.
Yeah.
So they were pretty much like, well, welcome to the show. Here's Alabama.
Yeah. And I was using Cincinnati as just one, but say it's the Toledo Zips.
Yeah.
Or one of these more minor, like schools that play in these conferences that are smaller.
Right.
And that team comes in and beats one of these powerhouses. There's a lot of deflated egos happening right there.
Well, the other thing, you lose the argument of why you left them out for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because remember...
they almost have to double down on it.
Where was Lane Kiffin, the team that went like 9-0 or something like that, and they got left out, and so they created their own like championship trophy, and like they were putting out like I think on their website they put Florida International University national champs or Central, I remember it was Central Florida, I forget which one, but they pretty much said that they were national champs. That screw everybody else.
And I'd say bring the HBCUs in,
Yeah.
Like say you had Howard come in and beat one of these big, because hey, it's football any given Sunday or any given Saturday in this case.
Problem is that there is a difference. Like you can't have an Alabama playing like a Wofford or because I think
you have a safety issue at some point.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. Like I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, but you could have the Toledo Zips play them. I mean,
I don't know. I think once you get to that level, like, look, Northwestern versus like, Kent State, sure.
Yeah.
Michigan versus Kent State, I don't know.
But the thing is, they do it in the beginning of the season anyway.
Yeah.
Remember when App State beat Michigan? That was great.
I do remember that. And I was like, look, and one of the people watch it. The only reason why people watch those games is because you're hoping to get lightning in a bottle.
Oh yeah.
You're looking for the NASCAR wreck.
Yep.
You want to see the big dog lose.
Oh yeah.
But the other problem is like if you have these automatic bids, like if you have the MEAC and the SWAC, like who gets it? Like you can't have everyone getting a play in an 8-game team playoff.
Yeah.
Right. Even in a 12-team playoff, because then what happens is like, because it like the NCAA basketball tournament, the teams get paid to get in.
Yeah.
Right. So, like in the ACC, if 8 teams get in, like each team gets the money goes to the conference, and then the conference distributes money to top to bottom. So even if like a team like Wake Forest doesn't get in, if they're team number 9 out of 9, they get money, but they get the lowest portion of the money. If Duke and North Carolina are 1 and 2, Duke gets a majority of it. North Carolina gets second most, regardless of where they get seated. Like it's like, okay, you're part of a conference. This is what you signed up for. So for example, like in the SEC, if you only had one bid per conference, I don't think the big conferences would go for that.
Yeah.
Because like in this case, you got Georgia and Alabama in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's say you did a 8 or 12 team playoff and you said, okay, the SEC only gets one. Well, they're only going to get one team's allotment of money to distribute to the entire SEC.
It's the money ruining everything.
Correct.
But the thing is, if you wanted to see who was truly the national champion, you would actually do it. And
that's why I do like using the ranking system though.
But if you took the big conferences, right? Big 10, SEC, Pac-12, ACC.
You can get rid of the Big 12.
Okay.
Because Oklahoma and Texas are out.
Yeah.
So I think you really only have 4 conferences now anyway.
Yeah.
Now the Pac-12 is out. You got, like you said, ACC, Big 10, SEC, Pac-12.
Yeah. These are like the Mountain West, but they're really nothing.
Yeah. They're not on the same level.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, Utah left. I think Boise's the only team left in it. And that's because they kind of got left without a chair to sit in on the musical chairs game. Because Utah went to the Pac-12. Colorado went to the Pac-12. What? Yeah.
Boise has the blue field.
They do.
People said birds would fly into it. I don't believe that.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to kill a few birds
to
have awesome field.
with dead birds on it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I've always had a problem. I do like the playoff system better now. I think you can make it a little bit bigger.
I think you go
people are going to watch it.
8 or 12 teams.
Yeah.
I think you use the ranking system for what it is. So if multiple teams from one conference it gets in. I think now that the Pac-12 is not the Pac-12. I think now that the Big 12 is kind of going to be a shadow of what it was. I mean, it used to have Missouri, Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
It used to. I mean, it had some big names, and they're all going to be gone.
Yeah, because Nebraska went to Big 10.
Nebraska went Big 10. Missouri went SEC. Texas A&M went ACC. Texas and Oklahoma are going SEC. I mean, I can't think. I thought someone else went to. Did Missouri go to the Big 10? No, it went to the SEC. Someone else went to the. I guess it was Maryland that went to the Big 10,
which is now 11. But
is it 12?
It might be 12.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think you really only have 4 viable conferences for that level now. You have some straggler teams though, but I think you're going to see some of these teams get incorporated into those conferences, like an Iowa State. So you got those Midwestern teams. So like you're going to have Kansas State, Kansas State, Iowa State. And I want to say like Baylor and TCU. Like, there's only like 5 or so teams left. The Big 12 is bringing in like other teams like Cincinnati and like don't get me wrong, Cincinnati's all right, but I don't think there are enough teams to make up a full conference that are going to be like awesome. I think like Houston's going to be in there, and like they're pulling some. So now it's like they're pulling some from like the All-American Conference, which used to be the Big East.
No, anyone ever get kicked out of a conference? Like,
have people?
yeah.
I don't
Like,
know.
if you kick out like Vanderbilt from,
I don't. So Vanderbilt and like Northwestern, they've got such deep ties to those conferences.
yeah,
I don't think there's a shot they get booted.
right,
For example, like the Big Ten, they only admit schools that are part of what they call AAU, academic. Basically, it's an academic excellence, and it's like a pretty prestigious ranking
yeah,
academically for university. The Big Ten will only accept teams that meet that criteria, which is why Maryland got in and Nebraska got in. And I think Missouri did not because they weren't in it.
yeah,
There was a push to get Iowa State to get in, but I don't think Iowa State's got that designation. Because Iowa State wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, you got Michigan State, Indiana, and Purdue. So what would be wrong with having Iowa and Iowa State in the Big Ten? I don't know if that'd be a big issue.
yeah. Now that I think, when I think about it more, I get just thinking about that, letting everybody in from the minor conferences. Like, I see the safety issue part, because basketball is a different animal. People aren't getting destroyed playing basketball.
Yeah, physically, you're right.
Yeah. Like you can have, Duke or what? I'm not
Duke versus Wofford.
Yeah,
Some no name schools.
The score might be incredibly lopsided, but no one's going to get like killed.
Right. Yeah. Like
So-
yeah, no, I see that. And I mean, and to your point about people watching, I mean, look at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
Even the 2 playing games people watch.
yeah,
And bet. By the way, that's another big thing. Betting. A lot more people are going to bet on these games
yeah,
if there's a playoff. And so I mean, if you got a 12-team playoff and you got 6 first-round games, or if you got 4 first-round games with 2 teams getting a bye or whatever it is, more people are going to watch those regardless of for the first round. I mean, if it's Alabama Cincinnati, people are going to watch.
yeah.
Because people watch Duke beat on, Mother Mary of the Poor in the first round of the 1 versus 16.
Yeah.
Because people want to see that 16 team win. And they want to bet on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anyone who does a bracket,
Heck yeah.
you're trying to find your Cinderella team that makes it to, whatever round they make. Remember when GW, I think it was, or Mason went?
It's George Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Or that Loyola Chicago with the nun lady.
Yeah.
From a couple years ago.
Yeah, when they go deep, when those teams like make it through, like everyone's rooting for them.
Yep.
Who doesn't want to see a team like that, knock out these big teams? So,
Hopefully you enjoyed this show. We went really long on this one. I feel like we probably crammed too many topics into one show. We kind of hit it. We got coaching carousels, or kids not making enough money. How about a playoff system for football? Will people watch it? Who's winning? Who's losing? Where's all the money coming from? We had a lot of topics. So if you liked it, please like, subscribe, comment, share. That's another thing. Please share this show on your Facebook page with your friends, with your parents. Don't share it with your children, but just share it with some people. Hopefully they enjoy it as much as you do. And if you can, I do believe we can get rated on Apple Podcasts. If you can, throw us a 5-star review. And we will see you next time.